Welcome to Geek Philosophy, where we love geeky wisdom. If you're new to the channel, I'm Brian. And this video is from our campaign headquarters live stream about what makes a great campaign launch, how to kick things off. And in this segment, we're exploring how to build your campaign around a clear story question, and why that's one of the best ways that you can create momentum at your table and keep things focused as you go. Check it out. So let's talk a little bit about campaign story questions. I've talked about this in the past, but I think this is a great time to bring it back up, especially with the Critical Role Campaign 4 just kicking off. You know, you want to start strong with a campaign. You want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to hook your players from the start, but also set the tone of the campaign and keep everybody invested in what's going on. So a campaign story question is a great way to do that. So let's get into that a little bit and find out what we're actually talking about. So when we mean, and let me pull this up for you. So when I talk about campaign story questions, for me, and this is based on some writing that actually writing tips that you would hear from Deborah Chester. Jim Butcher uses this for his Dresden Files series and everything he writes, really. But the campaign story question is a pretty simple formula, right? It's when something happens, the characters presume some type of goal. They're going to go after some type of goal, right? So when something happens, the characters pursue a goal. They have to go for something, whatever that thing is. But will they succeed when an antagonist provides opposition? So the antagonist could be a person, an NPC, but it could also be some other force in the world that is providing opposition. So will they succeed when there's a challenge to that? Now that seems pretty simple. And in a lot of ways it is, but it helps guide what you're trying to do with the campaign. So sometimes campaigns can get way off track as far as what everybody originally thought it was supposed to be about. And that isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes just a living campaign where people go wherever the characters want it to go is a great thing. But often when it gets to be too much all over the place, they start to get overwhelmed with choices or overwhelmed with the consequences of their choices, and it doesn't feel like a cohesive story anymore, or it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere, and sometimes people lose interest. So it's a challenge to make sure that you're keeping things on track, not to railroad, that's an important thing, but narratively. And so this is a way of framing the campaign story arc. If not the whole campaign, at least plan an arc of your campaign. And I think this is a way of making sure that everybody that's playing feels like they know what the goal is, and it can be simply stated to them when you are coming up with ideas for what you want to do with your campaign during your session 0. You can sit down with everybody and go, hey, yeah, I wanted to run a campaign that deals with, the fact that wild magic has become an issue, and there is a reason why wild magic is becoming a problem, and the characters that you're playing are going to seek out and find the answer to why wild magic has become an issue across the realm, and hopefully solve the problem by correcting the essence of magic that's becoming unglued, so to speak. That might be one thing. Or it could be something simple like there is a king that is making his people poor and taking from them and overtaxing them, and the hardworking people of the land can't keep this going anymore, and you are fed up with this, and you are trying to overthrow what's going on in the kingdom by exposing his corruption and making sure that people have a fair chance at a life again. It could be something like that. It could be big dragon attacking people in the area, need to defeat the dragon. Simple. Like, it could be whatever it is, but having a question and a thing that they're trying to do, and then again, that second part, the complication of that. Right? So what if it turns out that the dragon is now doing that because of some other big reason, and maybe it's a wizard that's sending the dragon and controlling the dragon. It's not the dragon's issue, it's really the wizard's issue, and so they slay the dragon, and then something else comes because they didn't get to the root cause. Oh, what are we doing now? We never investigated to find out the root cause. Whatever. You come up with whatever your story problem is. One of the things that I think is important here is to help frame the arc before you get started, meaning you don't have to give everything away, but try to understand what the type of campaign will be. Is it going to be political intrigue? Is it going to be searching dungeons and trying to find stuff? Is it going to be fighting monsters? Is it going to be some of it's going to be a little bit of all of that, and the group that I have now love a little bit of all of that. So you want to make sure that you're matching the campaign story question, what the overall question is, to what the people at the table want to do. If you're running a published adventure, it's kind of built in for you. They usually have a thing on the back that says this is what's going on. This is an overview of what this adventure is if you're running like a published campaign. So if you're doing your own, think of your campaign story question like that. What is the elevator pitch that you're going to give to your players to see if they'd be interested? What I tend to do is have 2 or 3 options that I want to do. I want to run as a DM. Something that I'm, invested in and that I'm excited about. And then I throw those out during my campaign, or my session 0 for my campaign. Because if I have 3 things that I know I'm going to be happy with, and they pick number 1, I'm going to be happy. If they pick the second one, I'm going to be happy. If they pick the third one, I'm going to be happy. If they don't like any of them, then I must tell them, hey, I got to go back to the drawing board, guys. I don't have anything that I have ready yet that I can run. But you tell me what are the things that you do want, and then I can start to think of things that might fit, and then I can give you another option. So that's something that you can do to kind of make sure that it's fitting what's going on with your group. And you need to also, as the campaign's going, align what's happening with the reactions and the game consequences with that story question. Here's what I mean by that. When we have the game going on, and I've talked about this before, but I think it's really important to reiterate, action should have consequences. So if the players save someone, then that's good for that person because they got saved. But what are the consequences for the rest of the world? Did they really tick off the person that originally was the one that kidnapped whoever that character is, and thwart their plans, and now an entire faction is out to get them because it ruined their machinations behind the scenes or whatever it is? So you want to make sure that you've got the reactions, not only of what do the characters and the player characters think and feel about what just happened, good, bad, or indifferent. Understand what your players and the characters are thinking about something, but also the rest of your campaign world needs to react. If they solved an issue and the village is getting better, then maybe the villagers are very, very happy with these people, and oh, you don't have to pay for your next time that you're staying here. At the end, you saved our town. This is great, amazing. But if they, took out the main bad guy that they found, and that guy reported into someone else, then that person might be after them for, obvious reasons. So really understand what's going on with the choices and the repercussions of those choices, or the actions and the consequences for those actions. That's a huge thing, and it should align with what your overall campaign story question is, because that's what the main campaign is all about. And you can kind of think about who are the people that would have a reaction based on what's happening in the story. This works really well in your homebrew world because you're making all that stuff up, and you can adjust as you need to. Also, it'll help you create new things. So when you're thinking about the reactions to what the player characters are doing, it prompts you to make maybe new NPCs, maybe new factions that splinter off because they were unhappy with how the law in that area handled the situation, so they created a splinter group and went off and did something else. Or maybe the monsters that were held at bay by this big bad monster that was there after you killed that big dragon. Well, now these other monsters have come in to reclaim what was theirs before that dragon came in. So you can think about how that works. So it's your job when it's homebrew to come up with those monsters, to come up with those factions and things like that. When you're running a published adventure, still works. It still means that you have to read through and figure out, well, what are the things that are affected? Sometimes in the best published adventures, they will tell you. If the player character successfully defeat this boss, then this boss will come later, or whatever it might be. So they give you the if-then statements that work in. It's just with homebrew, you have to create your own if-then statements about what's going on in your campaign world. But also, it keeps the lore of your campaign world focused. So when you're really trying to figure out, what is all of the lore that I've been writing for my campaign world have to do with what's going on here? Well, see what the players are doing and how they're interacting with things, and then that's how you bring in the lore, right? So either you bring it in as part of their backstory and with the things that are happening in, the world itself, or you can have the lore revealed based on the consequences to the actions that are going on. If the campaign story question is not about political intrigue and they're not really, working on alliances and resolving issues between factions and stuff, there's no real reason to do a big information dump about all the factions of your world at any one time. You might just have a few different things that you bring in because they are pertinent to a situation, but it might mean if you're doing a very monster kill centered campaign where you're going out and you're clearing forests of frost claws, then you really want to have that background of why are the frost claws there? Why are the people actually hunting them down? What's going on with that? Build the lore around what the story question is, and that helps you figure this out. My current campaign, if you've seen in a recent video, we did a little bit of a time travel element. So because there was a time travel element, I was able to use lore from this city that was lost to time, and then build things in, and then they experienced those things, and then when they came back to their normal time, it was really cool, like in the last session, they had old coins from that era, and they were like, ooh, can we spend these? Maybe they'll be worth more. What do we do now? Because these aren't in circulation anymore. These are like old stuff. Well, luckily, because it's a D&D game and people are seeking out old ancient stuff all the time, it's not as weird. What would have been weirder is coming up with a newer minted coin in the older time, because you couldn't have found that one. It didn't exist yet. So, it's like showing up, if we were time traveling and I showed up and went to the past with a $20 bill from today, that wouldn't fly, right? Like nobody would be able to spend that money. So anyway, it's around tying what's going on to what the players are doing, and making sure that you can introduce things and be focused about what the overall campaign goal was, because that's something all of you decided on that was going to be fun when you started. So try to make sure you're staying on track with that. I will say that this doesn't have to, put you in a box though. The campaign story question is a way to keep things generally on track, but when cool things happen and everybody's having fun, let it go, let it happen. This is sort of a framework, but there are always exceptions to the rule, because it's not really a rule, it's sort of loose guidelines to make sure that you can keep things on track and that you're always progressing and moving in the direction of fun, which is the main goal of the campaign. All right, thanks for watching, and remember, let their curiosity steer the adventure. Cheers.